All right, we can officially begin now. What's going on, guys, for Monday of August the 13th, 2018? Lee Sanders here from the RCWR show, covering all things wrestling, entertainment, and beyond since 2011. You guys got to forgive me a little bit for my appearance if I don't look how I normally look when I do the shows for you guys on Tuesdays. I'm still just a couple of minutes removed getting in from work, pretty exhausted. We got a long night ahead since it's Monday night because it's the final Raw before SummerSlam. Renee Young, if you want to just look for the positives, because I know Raw hasn't been banging these past several weeks leading up to WrestleMania. Fans of Renee Young, she's going to be hosting the whole 3 hour broadcast. I'm actually very excited for her. This is like a new breath of fresh air. So I'm hoping there's going to be a few interesting things stored for us. If you're going to be watching Raw tonight, love to hear from you guys. Get at me on Twitter at the RCWR show. But we aren't coming on here to talk about Raw. We're coming on here to talk about the passing of WWE Hall of Famer Jim the Anvil Neidhart. And I definitely want to get you guys' thoughts on his passing, some of you all's fondest memories of him, things of that nature. And depending on what we might be able to get into, not just right now, but definitely it'll be a continuation going into tomorrow night's RCWR show. We'll be coming on at 10 p.m. Eastern as soon as SmackDown goes off the air. So do make sure you tune in for that. But yes, WWE Hall of Famer Jim the Anvil Neidhart had passed away. Now, look, man, I've got to give credit where credit is due. One of the many ways that I found out about his passing was almost at the same time that you all have found out. However, the very first time I had heard about this news of his passing, it was actually a couple of hours before WWE and the Dave Meltzers, the Vince Russos have broke it via their respective social media outlets. I actually had heard the news first from my good friends over at Wrestling Soup. So actually shout out to them and anybody that's been listening to their respected show for a significant amount of time. You know, Joey Numbers over there is a referee, wrestles for a lot of promotions on the free agency market. So he's been in a position many times over the years. He's been able to befriend certain individuals involved in the business. So I'm not saying that it was Joey, that I'm just saying as far as credibility and sources and all that goes, these guys were definitely pretty reputable. And I like how they chose the words that they said online. It had actually sadly threw a couple of people off. They thought that maybe these guys were trolling. But sure enough, 2 hours later, yeah, the news had officially came out. And like I said, Vince Russo, the Dave Meltzers, even the Bill Apters, they all kind of a couple hours later. And honestly, I think it's a situation where with something like that, you know, you want to give the family enough time to mourn and try to call all the family members that they humanly possibly can. And then the information gets put out there that, okay, now that the whole family knows, okay, now we can go ahead and we can run with this. And shout out to TMZ Sports. TMZ Sports, they've been doing an exceptionally better job over the years in covering the news of pro wrestling. I definitely got to give them a lot of props. They've gotten to that point for me. I'm not sure how it is for everybody else, but they definitely gotten to that point for me at least where they're starting to become pretty reputable. So I definitely need to give them props when it comes to their coverage of wrestling. I'm talking about previous years, it wasn't so much. Okay, let's give this the respect that it deserves. Let's make sure we're doing all our cross referencing and everything. But I would have to say, and let alone the past 5 years, exceptionally, they've been up in the ante. So earlier this morning on Pacific time, a little bit after 9 in the morning, the Pasco Sheriff's Office had told TMZ Sports that preliminary information had indicated that Neidhart fell at home, hit his head, and pretty much had expired as a result of that injury that he had took to his head. They went on to say the sheriff's office, that is, went on to say that no foul play was suspected and no additional information is to be released at this time. Again, passing away at the age of 63. So when you hear about this, I mean, and it's really weird because I BS you not, as myself and my girl were in the car driving this morning, because I actually had woke up a little bit late for work, and I had troubled her to see if she could give me a ride to the station. And as we were talking, somehow the subject of finding a new home had came about, and in particular, we were talking about my future mother-in-law. We were talking about how she's able to get up the stairs right now, but is it really going to be the case for her 5, 10, 15 years from now? And we've really been kind of tag teaming and making the suggestion that, hey, mom, when you get ready to go move into the next home, you really should be looking for something that is one level. That way you don't have any weird accidents that come about. And I don't want for people to look at this incident that had went down, right? And then you also got to remember, not too long ago, when the American dream Dusty Rhodes had passed away, the circumstances for his passing, what led up to it, very eerie to what went down here with the Anvil. And the last impression that I want for you, the younger audience members, to have, any younger listeners that's going to be checking this out on demand or on the downloads, don't have the impression that this is, oh, old people, this happens. No, it can happen at any age. True story. It was last year, as a matter of fact, in my own home. I usually have to go up about, I would say, 20 stairs. Okay. So we have it's a 3 level townhome. So basically, we have the basement level, and then we have the middle level, which is pretty much the common area. That's where everybody pretty much comes in. And then we have the third level, which is pretty much bedrooms and all that. So I usually have to go up and down 20 stairs, give or take. And I remember one time I actually was getting ready to do some laundry, had the basket in my hand, would do like I normally do. I did nothing weird. And all of a sudden, my right leg, for whatever respected reason, it gave out and I fell down the stairs. And the way I landed, it was so bad that I actually was on crutches for several weeks. I mean, it was really, really bad. So, younger listeners out there, don't think that, oh, this just happens to old people. It can happen to younger people as well. But when you stop and you hear about this, it's rather sad. It's rather depressing that someone like a Jim the Anvil Neidhart, no less different than what went down with the American Dream Dusty Rhodes, that this is how it ends for them. It's quite, I gotta say, it's very depressing. I mean, I'm sure that for people within my age range that grew up, born and raised in the 80s, and to hear about this and just all the people that passed away, it's got to be very depressing from the standpoint of, goddamn, not even 50 yet. And all of these people that were part of my childhood brought some really good memories, right? That they all are just passing. It's got to be very depressing. And I see somebody in the chat that's saying, I don't think Anvil's in the WWE Hall of Fame. As far as I'm concerned, I'm giving him that respect. He's definitely a WWE Hall of Famer as far as I'm concerned. Whether he's in right now or not, he's a WWE Hall of Famer as far as I'm concerned. Okay, you don't, just because you're not officially recognized by the WWE doesn't mean that you're not a Hall of Famer. You know what I'm saying? Especially when you look at the long track record, the amount of great memories that one had created for a particular promotion and everything. No, I'm sorry. But in the case of Anvil, I'm sure there's definitely a lot of people that feel, yeah, definitely a WWE Hall of Famer if he's not in. But, this is just, when I first heard the news, I actually did not hear about the news until I got to work. And honestly, I found out via Twitter how it all had went down. That's how it came about for me. And I'm still kind of baffled just hearing about that. And it's so weird because just several days prior, Natty Neidhart, she had shared a picture that she had took with her father talking about how much she had loved and appreciated him and everything. And good God Almighty, who would have thought? You fast forward a couple of days, we'd be here. And just really stop and think about that. I mean, you think about this month of August. You go back just almost 2 weeks ago for the month of July. And I mean, we got hit with some really, really freaking bad deaths in the month of July. The passing of Brickhouse Brown, the passing of Brian Christopher Lawler, Nikolai Volkov, and then Tracy Cadell, who had helped found the Omega promotion with the Hardy Boys, really had helped the careers out, launched the careers of the Hardys, Hurricane Shane Helms, son of Trevor Lee, who's down there in Impact Wrestling. So, I mean, you had those four deaths that went down like in the month of July, all went down on a Sunday in July. And you're like, whoa, this is heavy. Does it get any worse than this? And to have this go down, you're like, wow, that is really sad. And that's really, and I definitely want to offer thoughts and prayers, nothing but strength to the Hart family, to the Neidhart family, in particular to Natty. I can only imagine the emotional roller coaster that she's having right now as all of this is going on. And that's sincere. Nothing but thoughts and prayers with you guys. And when you look back on the career of Jim the Anvil Neidhart, talk about an awesome career, even just before he got into pro wrestling. I mean, this was a guy that had a really good reputation in track and field. Eventually, that would lead him to playing for the NFL, and even if it's a situation where, oh, well, you didn't make it to the first string, right? Or you didn't make it to second string. Just the fact that you can say, hey, I had what it took and I was able to play for the NFL. The hell of it was just for practices or a couple of preseason games, just to be able to say, hey, I got signed. I was an NFL player, right? Was doing this for the Dallas Cowboys and he was doing this for the Oakland Raiders. So, I mean, that's really good bragging rights, but I mean, definitely a promising athlete, right? And then he decides, okay, you know what? I want to get into the whole world of pro wrestling. Okay, well, I need some really good training. He comes on up to Canada, hooks up with Stu Hart, and pretty much the rest is history. Works for Stu's promotion over in Stampede Wrestling. And I'm not going to spoil it for you guys, but for you younger guys that's out there, I'm sure you guys are probably going to take to the YouTube, the Daily Motions, or if you've got the WWE Network, you're going to look him up on there. And I would definitely encourage you guys to do so, because this was a guy, for a big man. He was, the way I would describe him, when he was in his best form, right? Because we've seen a lot of times where he let the weight really get the best of him. But when you just think about how he was when he was starting off in Stampede, and even when he came into the WWF the first go round and everything, I mean, he was a big dude, but the way he would move in the ring, he moved like a damn cat. And he definitely, there was no finesse. There was nothing. Oh, that's just, ooh, that clothesline full of grace. I mean, when he came at you, it was like a ton of freaking bricks, right? But for you younger listeners that's not familiar with him, I would recommend you look him up online. And there is, I don't want to spoil it for you younger listeners, because our older listeners know the story, especially those that have been following wrestling for many decades. But it's a fun story how he actually got the name Anvil Neidhart, because originally he was called Animal. So there's your homework. I don't want anybody in the chat to spoil it, nobody in the comment section to spoil it. We'll let that little trivia be for our younger audience. That'll kind of give you a little bit of something to do as you research up on him. But once Stu Hart had decided he was going to sell the Stampede Wrestling promotion over to Vince McMahon, and this is well documented. You could also pick up the Bret Hart DVD that came out several years ago. A great freaking DVD to this very day. You can watch it. And I remember when me and my friends we're eagerly anticipating that Bret Hart DVD. You talk about a nice, cool, proper introduction by the chairman himself, Vince McMahon, right? This was like the first time in DVD history that Vince McMahon actually did a special introduction for someone that he had a lot of admiration and respect for. Vince McMahon didn't do this for anybody else as far as an introduction and setting up the documentary part of a DVD. Vince did not do that before, period. So that should tell you how much of significant importance this was. But overall, a really great DVD, I would have to say. Definitely still right up there when you compare it to what all has come about in the past several years. But once Stu Hart had sold Stampede Wrestling, Bret Hart and Jim Neidhart, they were part of that deal. And Bret Hart, one of his original gimmicks in the WWF, he actually had wrestled as a cowboy. And he got really frustrated because first couple of bouts, Jim, Bret, they were fighting each other. And if I remember it correctly, Bret had got a couple of wins, and then eventually Jim got a win. But Bret was just so irritated. He was so pissed off with the gimmick that he had. He actually went to Vince McMahon and was like, "Hey, I'm not feeling this. Can we go in a different direction? Why don't you team me up with Jim? Because we did pretty well in Stampede. Why don't you team me up with Jim?" And pretty much, as they say, the rest is history. You think about the infamous feuds. That's, there's so much to name. And I appreciate those in the chat that's like, well, this happened and that happened. But for me personally, the ones that really stick out to me the most, just thinking about my childhood, my early childhood, and the fond memories that really got the ball rolling for me and really appreciating and loving pro wrestling to the point I did try to consider going in that genre, and then just to be able to continue being associated with it by befriending people, and then just everything just leading up to the whole podcast. I got to look back to certain moments in wrestling history that, yeah, this is awesome. And for me, the tag team of the Hart Foundation. Everybody has their favorite incarnation of the Hart Foundation. Yes, without a doubt, when you had Owen, Brian Pillman, Jim, Bulldog, Brett, yes, that was awesome. That was awesome from the standpoint of here are these angry Canadians that feel the Americans don't give a damn about them. They take a crap on Canada and they're pretty much giving it right back to the Americans. All that was good, but for me, when you get down, all of them very talented, a very talented, cohesive group. But man, nothing beats what you had first got when it was just two guys. And sometimes when I look at a tag team like the Revival, when I look at that tag team, they remind me so much of the original formation of the Hart Foundation with Jim and Brett. And it's so frustrating at times to see them in the position that they're in creatively with what we get of them on TV every single week, because I'm reminded of Brett and Jim. A lot of potential right there. And I mean, anytime back in the day, anytime you were watching WWF programming and you heard that Jim and Brett were going to be coming up next and they were going to be freaking wrestling, you're going, oh, yeah, this tag team match, it's going to be freaking on point. We got to pull up a chair for this one. And I mean, you think about all the feuds that they had with some of those teams in the WWF back in the day, whether they were feuding with the fabulous Rangul. I always mispronounce that goddamn name. Runa, the fabulous Runa brothers, Axe and Smash, Demolition, the Rockers, the British Bulldogs that consisted of British Bulldog, Davey Boy Smith, Dynamite Kid, the freaking Brain Busters, Double A, Arn Anderson, Tully Blanchard. Lot of fun freaking memories, man. It was a little bit rocky for Jim because I remember after the whole Montreal screw job had went down, he and everybody else that was kind of like part of the Hart family, with the exception of Owen, they all were like, nah, man, this is too much. Don't really want to be doing this anymore. And they went on ahead and They went on to WCW, and Jim didn't really last that long in WCW. If I remember it right, he did come back to the WWE. And at this point, that's when you had that stable I mentioned that consisted of Jim, Brett, Brian Pillman, Owen Hart. That was a great cohesive unit, without a doubt. The feuding there with Stone Cold Steve Austin, I mean, all that was just badass. But like I said, after the whole screw job had went down, he went briefly to WCW, and pretty much after that, that's all she wrote. He pretty much was wrestling on the independents. I remember the brief run that he had. It wasn't even a brief run. You might as well call that bad boy a one shot. I remember the one shot match he had in TNA wrestling. If I'm not mistaken, my memory is a little fuzzy right now, but I want to say it was against Jay Lethal. I want to say it was against Jay Lethal. And I see some of the interaction. I do appreciate the interaction because it is like not so much me mourning, but also being reflective. And we do got to live up to that part about being interactive. And I do see some of the things that you guys are saying in the chat. I see Dre is saying the Revival are more reminiscent of the Horsemen, bruh. To each its own. But for me, do I see a little bit of the Horsemen? I see a little bit, but I definitely see Jim and Brett. Jim and Brett from the standpoint of how physical and how technically gifted in the ring. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about personality. So let's make sure we're not getting my words misconstrued. All right. So just to clarify for you guys. And shout out to Mark. He said, yeah, it was against Jay Lethal that I did remember it right. Um, but and yeah, we definitely remember the whole Jimmy Hart. Yes, definitely remember Jimmy Hart being part of that whole evolution for Jim and Brad. A lot of great freaking memories. A lot. We'd be here all night if we went over all of the memories. But let me tell you something, man. It's always sad when a life is lost, but it's extra sad when a life is lost when it's a result of a freak accident. And you know what, man? I would like to say to you guys, hey, if you have a bunch of stairs at home, make sure you're utilizing that guardrail and, try to be careful as you're going up and down the stairs. I would like to say that. I really, really would. But I have come to the impression over the years when it's your time, it's your time. That's just it. And it's really important, I feel, that any and every day is not promised to you. And this death is just a painful reminder of that as far as I'm concerned. Every day is not promised to you. You need to live life to the fullest and leave this earth in such a way where when you pass, what will people say about you? Are they going to say good things about you, or are they going to say bad things about you? And I'm really led to the impression that, at least on this realm, we only pass through here once, and impressions mean everything. So to that I say, if you were mean to somebody in the past or currently, you just don't know whether it's you or it's somebody very close to you. It just seems like now more than ever, we really need to be appreciating these moments that we live in. And I don't mean to be all melancholy, but I tell you what, I'm a few years shy from 4-0, and to just see the waves of people that played a huge part in me growing up as a kid, to just see all these people just pass before my very eyes. It's very freaking depressing. Very freaking depressing. And that's all I can say. That's all I can. It's very depressing. I'm not liking it. I'm really not. Very depressing as hell, I have to say. So Bret Hart, he did comment. with regards to the passing of Neidhart. And he had this to say. He said, in part, that he was stunned and saddened by the death of his former tag team partner and brother-in-law. He said, "I just don't have the right words right now." Brutus the Barber Beefcake, he chimed in. He said, "Devastating news. Jim Neidhart, my friend, has passed away. I can hardly believe it. Rest in peace, brother, until we meet again." Sergeant Slaughter jumped out there, said, "Saddened to hear Jim Neidhart passed away. My prayers are with his families. I guess God needed an Anvil angel. Rest in peace, Jim." Ric Flair saying goodbye. "My good friend Jim Neidhart, world-class athlete and a man among men. Rest in peace." Iron Sheik, one of my oldest friends in the business, Jim Neidhart. We traveled together. I love him forever like a brother. God bless family. I never forget you, Bubba. So just damn sad, man. Damn depressing. And all those matches, the feuds and all that that I had just named, I'm definitely gonna remember that. And I mean, come on, man, the iconic beard. When I think about beers, there is like, and I didn't say beers like drinking a beer. I said beards, right? Got to watch the pop filter because sometimes people think you're saying something else and you're actually saying the right word. But yeah, when it comes to the facial hair, aside from the Hulkster, the handlebar mustache, infamous, Jim had that trademark goatee, and there's certain individuals you think of and you go, like the dude from Anthrax. He's got the long freaking goat beard, and it's usually a rainbow type of goatee. You think of him, and yeah, for me, I definitely the iconic beard for the Anvil, definitely the iconic laugh. God, that's some of my earliest memories of Natty is when she kind of first came to the scene in the WWE, and there was that period in time where she would do the laugh, and you're going, "Holy crap!" Kind of sounded just like her dad there. What the hell? That's awesome. So, but yeah, a lot of good, fond memories. And I tell you what, just to get ready to wrap this up, with regards to Jim Anvil, not in the WWE Hall of Fame, let me tell you this. One, I think that's rather freaking sad, that he still is not in the WWE Hall of Fame because he's in the Canadian Hall of Fame. Just looking in the notes here, and I'm seeing, as far as other Hall of Fames, he's in the 2014 class of the New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame. So I'm seeing right now he is in two Wrestling Hall of Fames, according to the notes I wrote down earlier. And yeah, the fact that he's not in the WWE Hall of Fame, damn shame. Damn shame. And I think WWE needs to change that. I think one of the ways you could definitely have him go into the Hall of Fame, really, I think you need to let the Hart Foundation go in and take your pick. You can either do just Brett and Jim, or you can do that whole cohesive unit during that time when it was pretty much like the original Canadians, right? The Canadian invasion in the WWF. But I think the timing, I think the timing's right. Quite honestly, if there was ever a time, if not now, then when? Quite honestly. So I would like to believe that after the news that we got today, yeah, he's probably definitely going to be going into the Hall of Fame. And I can only imagine, as far as who's going to be giving the speeches, I really would not be surprised if it was a 1-2 punch. I wouldn't be surprised if Bret had pretty much did the cold opener and Natty accepted on behalf of her dad with the family up at the podium, but she's mainly the one doing the talking on behalf of her dad. Yeah, I think honestly, if there was ever a time under the circumstances, yeah, because if you're not gonna do it in the next several months, then it's kind of, well, when exactly do you do it? Right. So you guys sound off. I'd like to know what you guys think with regards to that. And with regards to that, at this point, I'm going to be coming at you guys Tuesday night. We'll definitely follow up on you guys' reactions to this news, how you guys have been coping with it and everything. So do tune in. I'll be live here on YouTube, Facebook, and a couple other outlets streaming 10 p.m. Eastern this Tuesday. And that should be fun. At least I hope it's going to be fun. I hope we're not going to be on here in less than 24 hours talking about some more passings, man, because I know on top of this, it's been a really sad day if you stop and think about it, because on top of that, Aretha Franklin not doing well. Last report that was put out there was she's asking for a priest and she's asking for thoughts and prayers. So that's not good. So I'm really hoping that we're really not going to be hit with a 1-2 punch by the time we get ready to do this show for you guys. If you're new, welcome. Would definitely love for you to subscribe so you never miss out on all the great content. If you're checking this out via YouTube, make sure you hit the subscribe button and click on the bell icon so you always get the heads up on new content. Make sure you smash the like button, share, retweet, all that good stuff. Okay, guys? Until next go round, I am wishing all of you all to please be safe. Most importantly, be kind to one another, and may the good news be yours. You all do take care. I'll catch you guys tomorrow night.